I am so conflicted right now. Zach, my guy, what are you doing? What do you mean? If you guys don't know, Zach Cregger is the director of the film Weapons that just came out this past weekend. Really great horror film. I think it's fantastic. I definitely recommend going to see it. It is his second horror film. His first one was Barbarian from a few years back, which I like that movie a lot. More particularly the first half and the second half, but Weapons I think is an all-timer, at least for the year. So really go check it out. I do recommend it. And technically I've been a fan of this guy for a long time because there was a sketch comedy show called The Whitest Kids You Know like 20 years ago that I always thought was really funny, and he was on that as well. So here's where I'm conflicted, is because I'm on board with him as a person, as a director, as a filmmaker, all that kind of stuff. And when you're riding the high of Weapons that just came out, because this is doing well, it's doing well commercially, it's doing well with fans, it's doing well with critics. So, like, this is a big deal, right? So, when you're coming off a movie that's being received very well by lots of different people, people are always wondering, what's the next thing that you're going to do? And so, if you take that momentum and then move into the next project, and his next project is going to be Resident Evil, to me, that's like the most golden opportunity you could possibly have to finally make a great Resident Evil movie. Because even though I have some fun with the other versions that existed, it's from a different time. Like the early 2000s, the Paul Anderson movies, like, I have a guilty pleasure relationship with them. I really enjoy the first two, but this was a very different time, very different era. Back in 2002, video game adaptations weren't that common. Only a couple of the Resident Evil games were out at that point. The lore wasn't as extensive as it is now. So, like, I could understand them making the decision to do an original story back then. But now we're in 2025, right? And I feel like we have gone in every other direction. We've had original characters. We've had the Alice character. We tried to do the Welcome to Raccoon City movie that just crammed the first two games in together. And though I still like some aspects of that movie, just didn't work out. And then we had that god awful, abysmal crapshoot of the Netflix live action series. Please don't watch it. I did, and I regret every single moment of it. But anyways, now we've come back to this. We've come back to yet another launching point, another reboot of doing Resident Evil in live action. And now you have a guy like Zach Cregger who has proven himself, at least to me, in my eyes, in a lot of people's eyes, that he is a legitimately great horror movie director and could be the guy to do Resident Evil right. But then he comes out with these recent comments on his Resident Evil movie, and it's just very concerning. So basically he says, he's not breaking the rules of the games. He says, I am the biggest worshiper of the games, so I'm telling a story that is a love letter to the games and follows the rules of the games. Okay, all sounds good so far. But then we get to this comment where he says, it is obedient to the lore of the games. It's just a different story. I'm not going to tell Leon's story because Leon's story is told in the games and fans already have that. And what he's basically saying here is that he is making his own original story in the Resident Evil universe. To which I say, why? Because here's the thing. If he is going to make an original story with zombies or bioweapons or whatever, I would prefer him just to make his own original story. Just make his own movie. Why have the Resident Evil banner if you're going to make something that's different? If it's set in the same universe, I don't know what he's planning to do, but it seems like it would be a better idea to just make your own movie that's inspired by Resident Evil instead of doing a direct adaptation, if the plan is to not have any of the characters from the games or not tell any of the stories from the games. It would be like, hey, we're going to make a God of War movie, but we're not going to show Kratos because Kratos' story is in the games and we don't really need to see that story. We've done it already. Or imagine if they were adapting like The Lord of the Rings and we're like, we're not really going to tell Frodo and Aragorn's story because, that's in the books. You already have that story. So why would we tell it? You're making a Batman movie and you're like, well, you got Batman's story in the comics. We don't need to show it. Like, I don't understand why in so many video game adaptations they don't want to use the video game characters. You know, with Mortal Kombat from a few years back, we have to have an original character in the lead. The original series of the Resident Evil live actions had to have an original character in the leads. I don't understand why people are so adverse to using video game characters in their adaptation. And here's the thing for me also is like, I don't think you need to do a one-to-one adaptation of the cutscenes of the video game, right? Like, I don't think you need to do the same exact thing. I think there is freedom for exploration, freedom to go down different avenues and, you know, do different things with it, but just take the core fundamental of the story. Just have, you know, the STARS team, they crash land, they get stuck in the mountains, they go into the mansion, and in the mansion, there's a lot of crazy, creepy shit filled with zombies and bioweapons and, attack dogs and whatever else is in the hunters, whatever else is in Resident Evil, right? Like, we could just do that. We could take that premise. We can have the characters Jill, Chris, Wesker, Barry, have all of them there. We don't need to follow the template of like this happens and this happens and this happens. You don't need to do the cutscenes in live action, but just take the general idea and the general premise, put the characters in that situation, and then allow the movie to be whatever it is. The whole idea of doing a different story in that universe, I'm just not on board with that. I just don't think it's the right way to go. I think we've done that before, and I think that at least fans, look, I'm kind of a newbie when it comes to Resident Evil, but I'm sure that the majority of the fan base has just been wanting, if they're going to do live action stuff, give us the characters we know. Do Chris, do Jill, do Leon. Have the Resident Evil characters. They're main characters of the franchise for a reason. I was on to say those games pioneered something special. The pacing of the games is so unique and effective, and just being locked in with one character moving from point A to point B, knowing that you're going to pass through the gauntlet of terror and you've got to be methodical and thoughtful about it. True. That's cinematic, so I want to tell a story in that world of the games that honors the lore of the games, but it's a new story. You know, all adaptations to some degree deviate from their source material. It's very rare where you do like a one-to-one adaptation. Like Sin City is one of the only movies I can think where they literally do like the actual panels of the comic book as they adapt it. But most adaptations in live action or animation, they are able to have the freedom to do their own thing with it. But I just think after all the poor attempts to do Resident Evil in live action, if you're gonna do it now, especially if you're coming off the momentum of Weapons, let's do it for real. Let's have the actual characters there. Let's have a spooky mansion, slow, methodical, interesting movie with zombies, betrayal, action, all that stuff. Let's throw that in and finally start with the basis of what it is. There's never been a legitimate adaptation of Resident Evil, and I felt like he was the guy to do it. And the thing is, like, I loved Weapons, and I think he's a great director, and I'm sure, here's the thing, is like, I'm sure whatever movie he comes up with will probably be a good movie. Like, I don't think it's going to be trash, right? Like, if he does his own story in that universe, I don't think that the movie itself is going to be bad. I'm confident that he can deliver a good movie. I just think it's the wrong direction to go. But I'm just a fan. I'm not somebody creating stuff behind the scenes. So, like, what do I know? But I'm just thinking, we've done this before. We've gone down this road. We've seen what this has done to the franchise. And I think it's about time to just actually do the first game story in live action. And it seems like it's only video games that this happens with. If you were to adapt, like I said, like a novel or a book or a comic or anything else, it doesn't tend to have this problem. I can't think of any other medium where they're like, oh, when we adapt it, we're not going to use the main characters and we're just going to do something completely different and tell our own story. Like, why are video games the only property that ever happens to? And usually the adaptations that take that approach don't turn out well. It's actually one of the lessons that the creators of the Mortal Kombat movies learned from with their last movie, because Mortal Kombat 2 that comes out later this year is focusing on Johnny Cage and the characters from the games, and Cole isn't even in the trailers for Mortal Kombat 2. It's like they saw what they did wrong, and it's like, here we go again. But like I said, he's a good director. Weapons is an amazing movie that I highly recommend. I just don't know how this is going to turn out. But for now, we don't have any story points. We don't have any casting. We don't have any trailers, posters, anything. They haven't even gone into production yet. So this is just the early days of speculation. And who knows, 6 months from now, a year from now, we might get some reveals and I'll be like, holy shit, this movie's going to be awesome. But for right now, I just hate these comments. And I really wish that this was the moment, because this is the perfect moment to finally do this. And I just wish they would capitalize on it. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you down for a Resident Evil movie that once again doesn't feature the characters from the games? Or, did Zach Cregger prove himself enough that you're like, you know what? I don't care. He's a good enough filmmaker. Let's see what he gives us. I'm kind of torn. I'm a little bit in the middle right now. You know what I mean? So let me know what you guys think about this story down below. Just wanted to comment on this as I'm going through the Resident Evil series currently right now. And having just seen Weapons, it seemed relevant. But let me know what you guys think. And I'll talk to you guys later.